Hi. Um, I wanted to show you something pretty quick and kind of cool that I did recently with LimaCharlie. It's just a pretty cool thing, I think. So I have a friend who is a big fan of an open source project called Strelka. So Strelka, and let me show you a little bit. Strelka is an open source project by Target. And so they make some pretty cool technology, and so they have a really good blog post, and it's open source, obviously. So there's a good GitHub page as well. But the kind of the short version of it is that just like they say, it's enterprise file scanner, right? So the idea is that it's an open source project that allows you to do at enterprise scale, process a ton of files, and meaning you throw different types of files at it, and it performs all kinds of static analysis on it. So if it's a Word document, it's going to get a bunch of information. Like they kind of show it. Like there's even like some OCR stuff supported, all kinds of file types. There's archive supported as well, and like feedback scanning. So a ton of really cool stuff. But it's also, it looks like it's not necessarily the easiest thing to kind of go and do at scale in an enterprise, right? Like it's kind of, it can be probably pretty easy to send up just the scanner itself, but then how do you manage like everything else, the whole pipeline? And obviously, well, that's kind of where LimaCharlie came in my mind. Is like we do all kinds of cool stuff. We do all kinds of data routing. We make a bunch of things that are usually pretty complicated, pretty easy. So I thought, okay, let's give this a shot. So after after a pretty short development of an extension in LimaCharlie land. So extensions in LimaCharlie is just it's a piece of code anybody can do that allows you to go and expand onto LimaCharlie and do things. So we're going to be leveraging that quite a bit. But I'm gonna, like, now it exists, it's out there, it's available publicly, so I'm not gonna go into like the code aspect of it. I'm just gonna go into the what does that look like in as a user to start doing Strelka at scale on a bunch of different sources. So very briefly I will show you. So this is what I have in mind. This is what we're going to be doing. Essentially, we are going to create a LimaCharlie tenant. So the free tier, like a free tier tenant, just brand new. And we are going to spin up a Linux box somewhere that simulates essentially like a network tap on an enterprise somewhere. And then within it, we're going to be running a Zeek scanner. And we're going to do that with the Zeek container that LimaCharlie has, because it's just the open source Zeek. But what we do is we combine Zeek and then our adapter so that you can get all the Zeek stuff just streaming into your LimaCharlie tenant as telemetry. But the cool other thing is it all, like the container we have will also do file extraction on the streams, and it will automatically ingest those as what we call artifacts in LimaCharlie, like all those files into LimaCharlie. And then in LC, we're going to go and we're going to create a tiny DNR role, so detection response role, to go and say, hey, every time there's a new artifact, ask Strelka extension to go and process it, and that will re-ingest it as telemetry into LimaCharlie. And that's kind of like the kind of cool loop, because at the end of the day, what it means is, now if I'm in an enterprise, I could start deploying, like a Zeek container wherever I wanted as a network tap, and then that's it, right? Like super brief primer on LC if you're not really familiar, but like LimaCharlie, think of it like a cloud provider for cybersecurity capabilities, right? So spin up like tenants up and down, like build per usage, everything's open API, public APIs. It's OEM friendly. So like really kind of like a cloud provider, right? So yeah, you would just get like that container. You could just go and I won't say spam, but put strategically in your enterprise where you need it and start feeding that into LC. And obviously not on there would also be like if you had an EDR, you could also trivially start automating like, hey, if I see, some kind of user mode program write a zip file on disk, then I want to collect all of those and process them in Strelka or like doc files, whatever it is. And then obviously automate more from the Strelka output. You could say like, hey, if I see like this type of binary or this type of anomaly, then I want to go and generate a detection or do something else. So that's the overview. Let's get going and try to get that done. So LimaCharlie tenant. So I'm gonna sign up email. Security. So this is just a dummy password. I'm gonna set up. So sign up. Who uses passwords anymore? You know what? I'm just gonna make a copy of that in case I need it. I'm just gonna use it. Cool. Obviously, if you're reading this, I'm gonna be deleting this later. Right. I'm just gonna verify my email. And I'm kind of going through like the whole manual life cycle pretty purposefully. And the reason is that I kind of want to drive to the point that like LimaCharlie is like a cloud provider. You're not spending like 3 months negotiating something. So I'm just gonna sure that feels about right. I work there. Cool. So let's get started. So create organization. So that's our first tenant. We are going to call this Zeke Strelka demo. Let's create it in Canada. And I don't need any pre-config. Oh, I enabled the demo by mistake, by default. It won't really impact us. So we're just going to go create a tenant. And then here's the steps, what we're going to be doing really high level. So next step is going to be to subscribe to Strelka. Then we're going to create an installation key. So that's going to allow us to get our connector connected into our cloud. Then we'll create a ingestion key. That's slightly different. So that will allow us to ingest artifacts without an EDR. So it's a REST API, so we can just the container will be ingesting those directly into LC as artifacts, and then deploy the Zeek container. So the Zeek container is already pulled on a VM that I've got, and then we'll just configure it with the information above. And that's really kind of the heavy lifting. This is taking a little while. That's kind of strange. Let's just make sure. Okay, here we go. We're good to go. So let's go and first things first, I said we want ext Strelka. So we're going to subscribe to it. Here we go. So now we've subscribed to it. That means we're going to be able to start making requests to it when we are ready. That's good. Let's create an installation key. So sensors, you can already see some, sensors that were kind of like pre-installed because we enabled the demo. In our case, we are going to go installation keys, create one, let's call it Zeke, and then let's put a container tag. Okay, so I've got an installation key. I'm going to go and copy it here so I don't forget it. And then the next step is an ingestion key. So that is a REST API. So it is in access management REST API. And then I'll call this Zeek container. Here we go. So that is going to allow us to ingest the artifacts into LimaCharlie. Cool. Deploy the container. So that's pretty easy. So the container in question is pretty straightforward. It's here. So if you go in Docker Hub, we have several containers that are just publicly deployed. So in our case, there's kind of two that are relevant here. One is LC adapter Zeek. So that's going to be just Zeek with an LC adapter to bring in the telemetry. And then there's a dash extract flavor, which is the one we're going to be using. It will actually do the artifact extraction. So that's the new one. So let's then move into here. So this is just a random Debian box, I believe. I have done a Docker pull on it at some point. So that means image ls, yes. So we've got our adapter pulled locally. I kind of cheated. I started putting the command line that we're going to need in here. So we just need to fill in the blank. So what you're seeing here is we're saying, like, look, Docker run OID, that's your LC tenant ID installation key. So let's just fill those right away. So I'm going to grab the OID. There we go. I'm going to grab the installation key. There we go. And we're calling it Zeek extractor. And then finally, the ingestion token. There we go. Then we're saying the interface, ENS4, network host, reflection point. That's our container. All good. So I'm just going to type it interactively. And then quick pause to make sure that theoretically everything we're good to go. All right, fire. There we go. All right, our container is up and running. So let's go into LimaCharlie. There we go. So that's our demo. You can ignore this guy. That's a demo sensor that we mounted. The main thing that we're looking for is okay. So ext Strelka is there. So that is going to be where we're going to get a lot of output from Strelka. And then we got Zeek extractor, which is exactly what we wanted. I don't know if there's much going on right now, but let's do a little something. And that is, so we're just going to go and download on HTTP google.com for a couple of reasons, just to test it. So it's going to trigger some Zeek traffic. We're going to be able to see it. Then it's HTTP, so we make sure that it's unencrypted. So that means there's HTML. It's going to get transferred. That will be extracted by Zeek. And then that means we're going to go and see all of our data coming in. So right now, so we just triggered this. Awesome. We see, okay, here's our Zeek data coming in. That's great from the Zeek extractor, right? So it's just, yeah, it's just like all of your Zeek stuff you would expect. You could obviously customize it if you wanted. That's good. The next part that we want to see is the artifacts. Sweet. We have two artifacts that have been ingested. So if I was to go, yeah, actually, they're not. It's not a known file type, so it's just telling us like, look, that file is what it is. I could download the original, but what's missing right now is the artifacts are coming into LimaCharlie, but then nothing happens. So the last piece of the puzzle is just what we call DNR rules. So DNR rules, I just go in automation and I will create a new rule. And here, so what I'm saying here is in my rule, I'm interested in events of type ingest. The target, so that's the kind of the type of data coming into LimaCharlie that I want this role to run on, is artifact event. So that's metadata around artifacts being ingested. And I'm saying if the log type, which is set by us in that container, is Zeek extract, then that's going to match. And then what do we want to do based on that? Well, this is what we want to do. So this is saying, hey, it's a list of actions to take. Do an extension request. The action of that request is run on. The extension is the ext Strelka. And the data to put in there is I want artifact ID and then log ID, which is a legacy name for artifact ID in the routing of that event. So when a artifact comes in, gets ingested, it generates that metadata event saying like, hey, something got ingested. This role is going to run. It's going to match. It's going to tell Strelka, hey, you want to go and start and get that file and process it and do your thing. So I'm going to save this. Zeek Strelka. Save. Awesome. There we go. So that means if I go in Strelka right now, I should see nothing. That's right. So there's nothing, right? I subscribed to Strelka, but nothing happened there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at its live feed, and we will go and trigger another get here. Again, just trigger some activity. What we should see is within a couple of seconds is that we've ingested the artifact and we process it. There we go. So we had 2 artifacts. We did 2 scans with Strelka. Now, look, keep in mind, this result is kind of boring a little bit because it's they're just like HTML files. But you can see some of the output from Strelka. It's doing like a bunch of parsing of all kinds, getting you a bunch of hashes. Obviously, a lot of those hashes you could get like from LC in kind of other ways. But this is just the latest release of Strelka running. And I think what's really cool to kind of explain here is I got this done in, I don't know how long. I don't know how long I've been doing this, but like, I don't know, let's say 20 minutes from scratch, from zero. And for me to go and scale that up to an enterprise would require effectively no work on my end other than deploying that Zeek container wherever I need it. And if I had something else that produces files, like I have an email scanner somewhere that generates the attachments in the directory, for me to plug that in and run Strelka at scale on this, again, is super easy. That's how we're doing it. You could use the CLI, LimaCharlie CLI. Anytime there's a new file in this directory, ingest that file into LimaCharlie as, like, I don't know, Strelka or target or whatever you want to call it. And then it would just all start being populated. And that is it. I just thought it was pretty cool stuff. It's just so easy to kind of just get going very specifically with the setup. So I'll just finish showing the setup again. Yeah, if you have some other cool ideas, things that you're thinking about, yeah, get in touch. Always happy to bounce some ideas. See ya.